So, what is actually real? I mean, it sounds like a simple question, right? But it's a question that has kept us guessing for literally thousands of years, and it's led to some of the most profound and honestly mind-bending ideas ever. And today, we're going to dive into one of the most famous answers of all time, from the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. All right, let's kick things off with a little puzzle for you. Just look at a chair, any chair that's near you. You can see it, you can touch it, you can sit on it. Feels pretty real, doesn't it? But now, think about the idea of a chair. You know, that concept of chairness that lets you look at a stool or a throne or a beanbag and go, yep, that's a chair. Which one of those is more fundamental? Which one is more true? Yeah, this is the exact question that totally obsessed Plato. He was convinced that how we answer it tells us everything about the true nature of reality itself. And it led him to cook up this wild theory about a hidden, perfect world that's secretly running the show behind everything we see. Now, to get his answer, you've got to understand his most fundamental idea, that our reality isn't just one thing. Nope. He said it's actually two totally distinct realms existing side by side. One that we can see and touch, and another one that we can only grasp with our minds. So, these two worlds Plato talks about, they're like night and day. On one hand, you've got our physical world. He famously said it's like we're just watching shadows on a cave wall. Everything here is changing all the time. It's temporary, it's flawed. You know, there are tons of copies of things, like all the different chairs out there. But on the other side, you have what Plato believed was the real world, the world of forms. This is a non-physical place, a realm of pure ideas. It's absolutely perfect, it's eternal, it never changes. And in this world, there's not a bunch of chairs. There is only one single, perfect idea, the form of chair. And this right here, this gets us to the absolute heart of the theory. Plato argued that the most real, the most true things are not the physical objects we see around us, but these perfect non-physical ideas, the forms, that they're all based on. So every single chair you've ever sat in, it's just a flawed imitation, a mere shadow of that one perfect form of chair. Okay, I know. This probably sounds pretty out there. Why on earth would anyone believe in this invisible world of perfect ideas? Well, Plato wasn't just guessing. He had some really clever arguments to back it all up. Let's walk through the three big ones that made this theory so powerful for so long. So his case basically stands on three main legs: the one over many argument, the ideal standard argument, and the argument from opposites. Now, they're all pretty fascinating, but honestly, the first two give you the clearest picture of what he was thinking. So let's start with the one over many. Think about the idea of beauty. We see beauty in a sunset, we hear it in a piece of music, we see it in a person's face, we even find it in a math equation. These things are all completely different, right? Yet we use that one single word, beautiful, to describe them all. How? How is that possible? Well, Plato argued there must be a single, perfect form of beauty that all of these different things are tapping into or sharing. That's the one that connects all the many. Next up is the ideal standard argument, and this one is a really big deal. Think about it. How can we call an action just, or a person good? Plato would say we can only make those kinds of judgments because we have some kind of built-in understanding of the perfect form of justice, or the perfect form of goodness, that we use as a yardstick. Without those perfect standards, all of our moral judgments would just be, well, totally relative and kind of meaningless. So the case for the forms seems pretty airtight, right? I mean, it explains how we get our heads around these huge abstract concepts. But, well, it's not quite that simple. As brilliant as the theory is, philosophers, and even Plato himself later in life, started finding some pretty serious cracks in this perfect world of his. Okay, so the first problem is kind of simple, but it's also a huge one. If every single physical thing is a copy of a perfect form, does that mean there's a perfect form of mud or dirt? Or, as one philosopher joked, is there a perfect form of a boogie? Plato kind of dodged this, saying bad things are just the absence of good, but it's not a great answer. The theory seems amazing for big ideas like truth and beauty, but it really falls apart with everyday, mundane, or just plain gross stuff. And here's another giant hurdle. If the world of forms is eternal and never ever changes, what do you do with new inventions? Was there a perfect form of a smartphone just hanging out in reality 2,000 years before Steve Jobs was even born? What about things that go extinct, like a T-Rex? Does its form just stick around forever with nothing to copy it? It raises some serious questions about how a static, perfect world
can possibly explain our dynamic, changing one. But maybe the most clever, the most devastating criticism, the one that poses a real logical trap, has to do with relative concepts. Things like big or small, that are only ever defined by being compared to something else.
A perfect example of this is the three fingers argument. Go ahead, look at your hand. Compared to your other fingers, your middle finger participates in the form of largeness, and your little finger obviously participates in the form of smallness. Okay, that's simple enough. But wait, what about your ring finger? Well, compared to the middle finger, it's small, but compared to the little finger, it's large. So which form does it participate in? How can it be both large and small at the exact same time?
And that right there, that simple little example, it just shows a huge logical flaw. Plato's whole theory depends on these absolute, unchanging forms. But so much of our world is defined by relative comparison. Trying to apply an absolute form of largeness to a world where things are only large in relation to something else, well, you end up with a paradox you can't get out of. So with all these problems, you might be thinking, why are we still talking about a 2,400-year-old theory today? Well, it's because the questions Plato was asking are still incredibly important. The debate he kicked off has never really stopped.
When you boil it all down, the debate Plato started makes us face a really fundamental question about our most important concepts. When we talk about things like justice or truth or beauty, are we talking about some objective, universal standard that exists out there somewhere, outside of us? Or are these just human inventions, ideas that we create and define for ourselves?
And that leaves us right here with the ultimate question. Are the perfect ideas that guide our lives, our ideals of love, justice, and truth, are they copies that we perceive from some higher, more perfect reality, or are they just incredible creations of our own minds? The answer really defines how we see the world and our place in it. Are these ideas discovered, or are they created? Plato made his choice 2.5 millennia ago, and here we are still debating it today.